Hi, I'm Sarah, one of the coaches here at Dumpling, and I'm joined today with our other coach, Ashley, as well as one of our successful business owners, Richard of Interior Alaska Shopping. Richard delivers and ships goods all over the Fairbanks and rural Alaska areas. Richard had started his business around May of 2020, and he has completed over 3,200 orders on the platform so far today. We're going to be chatting with him about his business and how he has gotten to where he is today. So, hey, Richard, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, how are you all?
Good, thanks. Would you mind giving us a little bit of information on kind of where you started prior to finding Dumpling and what made you really want to branch out and start your own business?
Well, we had been doing a lot on just sort of, I think, kind of how most people are who do this. We had been doing a lot on, gig economy apps and doing different things. And I think if there was any gig economy app that was active in this city or town, I was pretty much on it. We just try to, figure out what was the best paying and et cetera, et cetera. And, I was doing Instacart for sure. And hopefully I'm allowed to say that. And essentially, like you kind of started having people go, hey, in 2020, obviously we're in the pandemic and I've been doing Instacart before that, but it was like, this is fine. But people were saying, hey, there's a lot of new shoppers. I don't know these people. How can I get you as our shopper every single time? I'm like, you can't. And so I was actually listening to a podcast one day, and there was somebody on there that was essentially talking about how unethical, you know, the gig economy was, and in particular talking about certain apps, and said, oh, I do this now, and they mentioned Dumpling, and I was like, And so there was I didn't really do anything with it, but there was the way Costco was set up during the pandemic, if you remember. They would open it up at 6 in the morning. At least here, they were opening it up at 6 in the morning for Instacart to come in early. And there were always two cars in the parking lot by 5:55, me and this other guy. And so we got to know each other. And it was probably a month later or 5 weeks later, after I'd heard this podcast, he said something. He's like, you heard of Dumpling? Like, I just heard of this and I'm going to check it out. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I actually have the app on my phone. I just haven't done anything with it. And we both ended up setting up a company. We kind of had a meeting and set it up, and we're just like, let's try this. And then he, sort of the pandemic died down a little bit a few months later, and he already had a company. So he kind of went back to that and really didn't do too much with the app. He's no longer with it, but for us, it was kind of like, hey, this kind of started, and a couple of days, I think the next day, actually, we had our first order because contacted our people who were like, hey, we got this going. If you want us every time, here's how you do it. And kind of just went from there.
That's awesome.
How has your experience in like Instacart, for instance, shaped how you built your business? Was there any sort of things that you decided to change from their model?
Well, I mean, some of the model, I mean, it's a different model. First of all, I mean, you own your own company, right? And so, pretty early on, we adopted a business owner's mindset. It was like, hey, this is my company. I need business cards. What do I put on the business cards? Do I put my picture on it? Do I not? Do I put, hey, yeah, let's get a QR code that makes it easy. Then sometimes I don't even have, somebody doesn't want a business card, but like, hey, scan my code, and it's easy. So I think, just getting that mindset that it's, this is kind of my thing, was critical. But I mean, having that entrepreneurial spirit, that it's very different, rather than, oh, hey, somebody's going to give me an order. Do I want to do it or not? No. Somebody gave me an order. I'm going to do it. How do I want to do it? That's a different paradigm, I think. So I think, to answer that question directly, I think it's very different. But having the kind of experience in the aisles, if that makes sense, and knowing where to go to get things was critical, because it gave a good launch point for what this has become.
Exactly. I think that's one of the biggest things we kind of talk with people about is, like you said, that mindset change. It's some people, it's easier for them to kind of get into it and grasp it. Other people, it takes a little bit because you are just so accustomed to one way of kind of doing things. And it is, like you said, it's a completely different scenario altogether. And you have way more control, and you yourself are doing way more within your business, other than just, things like you said, they're not just popping out. Orders aren't just popping up in the app. I mean, they are, but not in the same realm as with Instacart, where you just log in and you take what you take. So yeah.
Well, and it's also just like there's a mindset where it's this person's really annoying me, I'll never see them again anyway, I can just decline their orders, versus this person's really annoying me. All right, but I've done 85 orders for them. Like, let me just let this slide, kind of thing. Or, oh my God, this person's just amazing. And, I'm glad they're amazing, and I'm going to see them again in 2 weeks, or, that kind of thing. Like that either way, versus both, positively and sort of negatively. I guess negatively, that's a different mindset than, oh God, I hope they don't rate me badly, because then it's going to mess up my ability to access orders for the next month. Or man, I'm a driver, I'm just gonna rate them as 2 stars so I never see them again, kind of thing. And it's a short term, I think, mindset versus long term build mindset. I think that's the biggest difference, really.
Awesome. So what would you say you like most about kind of having your own business in comparison to coming from the gig world?
I think sort of liking most, I like building stuff. Like I just think it's ours, it's our thing. But I think that there's an element of kind of the corporate social responsibility to some extent is a big thing for us, in terms of we're serving some of, well, arguably the most underserved areas of the country, rural, remote Alaskan villages, and providing, in my opinion, superior service at a fair price, with no hidden charges, and that kind of thing. And so just kind of that whole idea of I don't know if it's like sticking it to the man kind of thing, but to some extent it's kind of like, yeah, like, hey, we're doing this. And it kind of cracks me up, because it's like, I think people in rural areas, I mean, some of our customers are getting really awesome service. Some of it's luck of the draw with the airlines and things like that, because there's a freight queue and things like that on the Bush Airlines. But they're getting stuff pretty quick, where they might not even get that quick in town. I mean, like they can put it in an order and get it the same day, obviously, but that's not with the same level of service, and they're going to pay more for it in town to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to give anybody watching a kind of quick
Sorry.
quick run through of, oh no, you're good. I don't want people to think like, wait, shipping to airlines, what does that mean? So obviously Richard is in Alaska. So a lot of the rural areas out there, they're not able to get the stores, or they don't have the stores there. So a lot of people that live in Alaska, they do have their food shipped in via airplane. So Richard basically goes into town, he grabs all of the stuff for their order, and then he loads it onto, takes it to the airplane, I'm assuming like hangar, and drops it off. And then from there, it is taken to the client. So he definitely has a little bit different of a business model than most people, especially on the platform, but he does really, really well. And it's just been awesome to see over the years, everything that you've kind of shipped has been some random things, and just, it's really cool.
Yeah, sorry, we probably should have given some background information. I mean, again, just to sort of clarify a couple of things there. I mean, so what happens is most of the vast majority of the state is off of the road system. We do have the main roads that connect some of the main cities, but a lot of them are off the road system. Even Juneau, the capital's off the road system. Nome is off the road system. Barrow's off, they're not connected by roads to anywhere. So everything is either is freighted in somehow, ship, barge in the summer, or bush plane, or if it's big enough, a bigger plane. And so, or mail. And so what we do is essentially we live in, work here in Fairbanks, and then this is, a hub for the state. It's the second biggest city in the state, or second biggest municipality. And we use, the transportation means accessible here to get it out to wherever people who place their orders are. We do have some local customers that we do sort of the traditional, hey, let's drive and drop it off. We have a few of those, and those are great, very different for us, very different. It's like, oh, it's a local ordering. This is interesting. We don't get these that often, but it's like, that is what we do. That's how
So
it's
I'm thinking with like the local, you're able to kind of meet with the customers, and when you're shipping, you maybe talk to them over the phone or via text, but it's not like in person. So it's definitely different.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is, our local customers, obviously we meet them, and the funny thing about that is our rural customers, what will happen sometimes is, I'll be dropping off an order early in the morning, because what we tend to do is we'll shop, get orders finished, and then we have to box them, label the boxes correctly, dry, chill, freeze, whatever other stickers have to be put on them. And then we take them to the Bush Airlines. We always do at least one drop a day early in the morning, because the earlier you can get it there, if there's flights that day to that village, then it has a chance to get on that plane. Otherwise, it'd be a couple of day or two later that gets on a plane. But sometimes we'll go into the airlines, and that's when we actually meet customers, because there'll be somebody who's in town and is doing something, and then they'll be in the freight office dropping something off, and I'll look at a box, or they'll ask them, okay, who's the shipper, and they'll say their name, and it's like, I know you. Or so I had one day somebody looked at me and looked at a box that I'd put on the scale to have it weighed, because we have to weigh all of the boxes. And she looked up and just looked at the handwriting on it. She's like, are you the dumpling guy? I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Just by the handwriting, she knew. That's
I was
awesome.
like, yeah, she did, because she's gotten so many boxes from us, and we do it a very particular way. So that's pretty funny.
It's so interesting that, we talk about, you're just a small mom and pop shop, but you've essentially given access to a wider variety of food to a lot of people that otherwise don't have it, which it's so easy to just talk about it like it's a business, but for those people, that's such a different experience. They don't have Amazon Prime. They don't have, like, I want something.
Prime does mail, but they just recently changed that, and actually to some of the villages they cut it what they would send. So yeah.
It's definitely, it allows them to have that lifestyle without losing as much access to things. It, like, if they have a specialty diet, things like that, it's incredible that there's someone that can just shop for them. So I know obviously for most of your clients, that's the biggest difference, is that they just have an option now. But has there been anything else that clients have kind of said to you that has been, this is why I use your business. This is totally different than any other options available to me outside of just location access?
Well, just so a really good friend of mine, he's become a really good friend, started off as a customer, and now is, really good friend. And, we were talking one day, and he's just like, dude, you don't understand what a game changer this has been. He's like, I was like, well, no, I don't. He's like, well, before, what would happen is, like, at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, either me or my wife would fly into town, and we'd just, spend a couple of days, and we'd shop. And, and it's just a big pain. And now it's like click, 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 click. And, a day or two later, sometimes the same day, but, usually a couple of days later, here it is, and it's like, he's like, it's just great, and he's like, you really don't get it. And I'm like, no, I don't get it, but cool, thanks, kind of thing. And I don't know if that really answers your question, Ashley. But just, I mean, it feels good, knowing, knowing that you're kind of helping people and, at the same time, earning a living. And that's kind of a cool setup. And I think that, like, just also, it with this thing, again, like vis-a-vis other, where this has gone, vis-a-vis other sort of gig economy apps and things like that. You have, you get to know people, like, oh, hey, it's so and so's birthday. I had somebody put in an order for a cake that had to be special ordered, and the note, I was like, and I actually texted her. This was like maybe in January. I actually texted her. I was like, wait, isn't this the birthday for your other child? Because the previous, the name on the order, their birthday is in November. This is January. This is for your other kid. And they were like, oh my God, I forgot to change the note. And I was like, yeah, but this is like the third year I think I've done 2 cakes, and just kind of remembered, like, oh, hey, so and so is November, so and so is either January or February. And it's kind of made me laugh.
And that's just things that if they were to go with Instacart, the shopper likely would not have caught that, and they would have gotten the wrong name on well, if they were even able to get the cake to where
you can't really do custom order cake and pick it up 24 hours later on Instacart. So, like, it's just not, you can't do those kinds of things, whereas we can,
Exactly. And we talk about all the time, just for like a normal dumpling. I say normal in, a very small sense, obviously.
Traditional, where you go and deliver it to their house, and
Yeah, exactly. Like, we always talk about how, a big plus is the time saver, right? And for you, that's even like tenfold, because it's not just a 30-minute drive down the road to get to your local store. For most of these people, like you say, they're going once a month, because it takes so much time to get there and drive back. And that's a lot out of their day. So it is, you really do save a lot of time, I can only imagine, for these people, and they're able to do other things. So I can definitely see why it's so valuable to a lot of your customers.
And I think for us, we think about, right, like, wow, it's so expensive to get your stuff shipped and to pay a delivery fee in that instance for orders that size. But that's compared to paying for airline tickets for yourself, for lodging, for still getting it back with you. And so on top of the time savings, it's not a huge deal to them, in the same way that some regular clients here would be like, well, I'll just go to the store myself until money's better. It's a much different situation there, where they need food either way, and it has to get there either way.
Right, exactly.
So over the past, 3 years, it'll be 3 years in May, right? And that's correct, 2020. So yeah. So over the past 3 years or so, what kind of challenges have you come across, and how have you overcome those?
I think, there's a few that I could pick from, but I think the biggest one is just figuring out the logistics of stuff. Besides figuring out like odd requests and orders, like, I need a part for, I need a new fuel tank for my house. Can you get this airline? Like, oh my God, we're out of diesel. I want some diesel type of thing. Can you send me 5 55-gallon drums of diesel? Yes, we can. Like, that's easy because I know where to go to get that. But like, fuel tank, like, really, aside from those kinds of things, like tracking down stuff like that, I think that the biggest thing is just the day-to-day, like, figuring out the logistics. Okay, how do we box bananas so that they're not going to freeze or be chilled in the middle of winter when it's negative, 35, negative 40 Fahrenheit here. I guess it's the same thing, Fahrenheit and Celsius at negative 40, but and it's going to places that sometimes are even colder in a bush plane, so you've got to kind of figure that out. Avocados, how do you get ice cream out? I mean, even in the summer, how do you get ice cream out without it melting, that kind of thing? And just making sure everything is labeled properly, everything's accounted for. At this point, we're not dropping off. We've got multiple orders going at the same time. We're trying to get things brought all together, put together, boxed up, and making sure we get, don't put Sarah's item in Ashley's order that's going to a completely different village 500 miles away. Oops. And then making sure holding the airline accountable as well, and making sure that, because they've kind of, one of them, well, both of them, but really one of them is kind of like, so I had a customer call me one time, like, I got a box for somebody that's in this village. I'm like, what's the name on the box? They're like, this. I'm like, yeah, that wasn't even on your scale, because I always have to send the customer. I send the customers a picture of all their boxes on the scales, so they get at least 3 pictures. One of their dry boxes, one of their chill boxes, one of their freeze boxes. And like, yeah, you can see that box is not on your scale, so you didn't pay for that. You can just send it back, and it's free, so it's not going to go bad, thankfully. But those kinds of things, and just helping with the logistics. The airlines, they're all, nothing is, a lot is not automated, so you don't actually know if your boxes are coming that day, unless you call in and say, hey, my name is Sarah, or here's my airway bill, but I just want to check and see if something is on the plane, and there's 2 flights, so you got to call 2 or 3 times sometimes if it's not there. And so we call the airlines a couple of times a day and go, hey, did this make the plane, or what do you still have in the freight queue for us? And then if something's going out, we try to text, because again, middle of winter, you don't want to go and hang out at the airport, which is just a landing strip outside, and wait if nothing's going to come. So, or you don't want your chill boxes full of produce being left on the landing strip.
Yep.
Now they're no good. So it's just trying to help solve those logistics, even though that's not really our responsibility. I mean, once we drop it off the airline, it's not really on us anymore. But just trying to help solve those, anything we can do to help solve logistical things, makes it better for our customers. And to be honest, it helps the airlines too, because it helps them replace less damaged stuff. So there's a win-win situation. But I think that's the biggest challenge, probably, is figuring out how to do stuff, pack it the best way. I mean, how do we get eggs out without having half of them broken?
That is definitely such a different challenge than most people have. And so I'm glad that you shared that, because sometimes people are like, oh, I could just do that too. And I don't think they quite understand that you make it look easy because you've done it for a while, right? But that it took time to figure out. I think my next question for you, because I assume this is also a large challenge, and when you don't see most of your customers, you can't just leave a flyer in their neighborhood. What has been the marketing that has worked best for your business for those people to find out you exist?
Okay, so this is, some of this is geography, and thank you, but it's look, this is a very colloquial state. And so it's word of mouth. I mean, when we want to do something up here, we ask around, hey, so and so, I need a painter, who do you recommend? Or hey, I need a property manager, who do you recommend? Hey, I want a handyman, who have you had good experiences with? And you just ask people that you trust, because they probably have that experience or they know somebody that has that experience. And so, I mean, to be honest, what happened was for our initial, when we first started, like Sarah mentioned May of 2020, and our first order, I think, was the next day. But that was just because I think I had 8 numbers from people who I had shopped for saved. And I texted them like, hey, who've been bugging me. And I'm like, hey, here it is if you want it. And one lady was like, I'm ordering tomorrow. I'm canceling this and I'm coming to this and I'll see you tomorrow. I'm like, sweet. But that's not normal for most business owners. I mean, that's just not. And then the second thing is, about 6 weeks later, middle of the pandemic, villages were locked down. You could not leave the villages unless it was a medical emergency. And because people were like, hey, we can self-isolate as a community and keep this out. And also there's not medical services in most of these villages that are good enough to handle serious things. People get medevaced here to Fairbanks from all over, and we have, I think, 8 or 10 ICU beds or something. So it was like, oh my God, it was overwhelming. And so the way it was dealt with was just locked down. We're going to live normal, but we're going to lock it down. And so somebody found me and had a good experience. And I was like, hey, I know how to do this. Like, I had been to Bush Airlines on Instacart before. And so, which was very interesting experience. And well, because I didn't know, I thought it was like delivered to somebody who worked there. And they're like, you idiot. No, this is somebody. And I'm like, I don't know this. Like, it just said take the right air shot. I mean, like, they're like, yeah. So I show up with a bunch of bags and they're looking at me like,
What are you doing?
and I'm like, come to find out now, they absolutely hate Instacart because they just like, this happens all the time. But for me, it was like, light bulb, I can do that. So as soon as I got like we got the first order, it wasn't intentional. Somebody booked an order and then they booked another one. And then they put a blast on that village's Facebook group. And literally for the next 3.5 months, I didn't even have to say where the orders were going because it was just going to this one village. Literally for 3 months, it was several hundred orders over, like probably a couple hundred anyway, over the next 3-4 months. And then they couldn't keep it under wraps and word got out. So I don't even know what your original question was, Ashley, but
how you marketed to
find word of mouth.
I think they chased you down is the answer there.
Word of mouth. Yeah. And so, I mean, we've toyed around with doing some different things. We've toyed around with doing maybe a zip code mailing. And we probably will do that at some point, just target a couple of villages and go, okay, and send everybody in that zip code a flyer. We locally, we sponsored a youth hockey club this year. Part of it is just because our kids play hockey. And so it was like, hey, this is cool. It helps the club. But at the same time, it was like, yeah, this is cool. Win-win situation. But really it's just walk around with business cards and have the gift of gab. And, anybody who, you talk to, just who's kind of interested, hey, this is what we do, and be open, be open to, oh, do you do this? No, but I can.
Yeah.
I can get you the fuel tank.
It helps you've made such a name for yourself in your local area too, because when those people come to town, as we talked about, they could talk to a cashier or they could talk to someone at the airport, and all those people are going to be like, hey, you should check out this guy,
Right.
And so because you've built those relationships, those people essentially do your marketing for you a lot of the time, which is such a cool thing to see on such a high scale.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know for a little bit you had talked about possibly jumping into social. Did you end up doing that or not really?
Well, yes, we did. We just have social media, but essentially all we use social media for is to advertise sales.
There you go. Okay.
And it does, we do have some followers and people, do. I mean, there's been a few things that we've done, so like Fred Meyer's will have like candied apples that are not the custom made ones, like they're not the bakery ones that are expensive, but like the packs, those don't come in often. And so like, I was like, hey, we've got Fred's has candied apples, and somebody put in an order like within like 2 hours. And like, I don't know, just I think it was like 12 6-packs or something like that of them. And then we had there was a sale. I think it was Safeway or somebody had a sale on one of the energy drinks, Monster or whatever it was, Rockstar. I think it was Rockstar. And it's like, hey, this is actually a pretty good sale, like buy two get two free. And somebody ordered like 2 cases of them. Like, it's like, hey, I just saw your Instagram post. Yeah, okay, cool. So it manifests itself like that. I think I don't know how success. I don't know how. I mean, some people like it and things like that, which is cool.
It's more so just for kind of the clients that you have that follow you, to keep them up to date on kind of what's going on in your area in the stores.
Right. Because
I know
they're
for
not
a
seeing
while
it.
you were a bit nervous or apprehensive to get into social. So was there anything that kind of made you want to give it a try and made you feel a little more comfortable doing so?
No, I still don't want to give it a try.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, it was just kind of like, I don't really, I guess I don't really want to create a lot of content, because this is not really about us. It's not about, hey, look at me kind of thing. Like we have a TikTok channel that we have never posted to. And I doubt I ever do. But yeah, I mean, if I ever do, the first post is going to be something like, when I got married, I dated my wife for a long time, and she thought I would never walk down the aisle. Now this is all I do, something like that.
Something funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something snarky, but it's it was just reluctance to kind of, what am I going to post? I don't want to create content. I just want it to be useful. Like, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what was my reluctance to do it. But I mean, I think it's fine. I think you do need a digital. I think it's helpful to have a digital footprint, even if it's tiny. There's some legitimacy to that. Like, oh yeah, we're on Facebook. You can find us. You can connect with us.
I think for your customers too, just to have that sort of human to human connection that they don't otherwise have a chance to get with you is really cool. That they can kind of see like a day in the life sort of behind the scenes.
Well, no, see, we don't post that kind of stuff because it's all sales. And that's what I don't want to do. I'm like, maybe I should probably do more like that, but it's like,
You're worth a shot if
too
you're
busy to just kind of like be bothered. I'm sorry.
But it's funny because at the same time, it's also a good example. Some people love social media and their business thrives on it, and other people just make it work without it because they're not comfortable with that. And it's doable, right? It takes a lot of groundwork and building relationships, but it's not impossible. And so I do like that you are an example of that, of someone who's been very successful for a couple years, to where people are chasing you down for orders. And you're just now starting to tap into social media marketing and very minimally doing it. And
Right.
it didn't hinder you from, continuing to grow your business, which is nice for people to see that aren't comfortable with that. It's just a different path. It's not necessarily right or wrong, just a different path. So I'm glad that you've always been honest about that.
Yeah, and I think and I've talked to you about that. I mean, and I think that's the critical thing is, finding a niche. That's really what it comes down to, is finding a niche, seeing a need, figuring it out, and kind of putting the various pieces together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think your business will look like in the future?
I don't know. Like, I mean, we have some pretty big ideas on things that, we'd like to do. Maybe involving actually producing some food up here, and kind of getting me, an ideal situation, like if we had our own a bigger, big storage bigger or a big storage facility, I should say. We don't have one now. But like, like, hey, these are the top 100 items that, our customers order. And if you order from this virtual storefront warehouse where it's stored, we guarantee your order will be at the airport in 3 hours, kind of thing. And then, maybe combine that with some, producing our own produce, organically, hydroponically, something like that. But I mean, those are so far down the road that, just the capital to get it started and the infrastructure it's a ways off.
But definitely some good goals to kind of hang on to for the future and just kind of keep striving towards that. I think that would be really cool for you guys to kind of branch out and do, for sure.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I don't know. I mean, these are just ideas, that's what you asked. What do I think? I mean, some of those are pipe dreams and may never happen, but I mean, those are kind of just ideas that I think about from time to time. Like, I wonder if that could work.
If they ever happen, you have an entire community of cheerleaders rooting you on. So, you know where to go if you ever need some help with that. It's
Cool.
not even just us, but I think business owners on Dumpling as a whole have all been pretty inspired by the things that you guys have done so far. So,
did you guys ever think when you started working for Dumpling and that, did you be talking to somebody who, works in like the interior of Alaska and serves rural Alaska as one of the
Coaching you is so different than coaching anybody else over the years that I've done it. And I've loved every second of it because I learned so much because I don't know anything about Alaska. Like I can help you to a degree, right? But
the first meeting.
yes, you and Antoine specifically, because you're both so, I mean, granted, he's in Florida, but very, like you said, it's niche, right? It's so specific and it's not just like a everyday kind of, business owner. It's always fun being able to like talk to people like you guys and just, hear what it's like and what you're doing. And I know Ashley too, we love hearing all the different things that you do. Every single time something comes up, we're like, that's so cool. Like I never even thought of doing that. Or how did he deliver that? The fuel tank, like how is that even possible? So many questions,
That's pretty funny.
It's funny as a company too. I know obviously the more you guys get creative and grow, the more it pushes us to have to kind of meet that need. And so it's interesting to think about if you guys had never done that, how many things we might be lacking as a company too without that insight. And so I'm always excited when you guys do something new, because even if it's hard for us to figure it out or it's not immediate, it really propels us too, which is a fun thing to see.
Right. No, that's cool.
So with you being around for 3 years at this point, you've kind of seen the app evolve in quite a bit, right? So, I mean, over the past 3 years, so much has changed. Is there anything that kind of sticks out or that was exciting to you? Maybe that has happened.
So the surge in inflation in the country has actually brought the prices in the app up closer to Alaska prices. So,
They have
more accurate pricing. No, I that's that's always been my like joke with
I saw you right in the other day saying that, I think I saw you in one of the catalog edits the other day, and I think you said that as well. I remember seeing it, something along those lines, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, no, that's true.
I actually found something a couple of days ago. I can't remember what it was, where it was on sale here, and it was actually less than the price in the app on national average. And I'm like, did this happen? Like it may have happened before, but it's like I never noticed it, and because I don't really pay attention to the prices, and it just was I noticed, I was like, wow, that's pretty funny. So I mean, just in general, I mean, like there's the chat option that wasn't there before. Um, which is, I mean, for us, it's sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. Because not everybody uses it. We tend to SMS our customer, send a text message to our customers anyway. But I mean, there are a few that use that and want to talk that way. So that gives them an option. Internet's not always reliable in our villages. So, it's just when they do get internet, they can see it, versus sometimes text messages can get lost and they don't all, especially with pictures. Like sometimes people have a problem with picture, or sometimes people have a problem with their phone, but they have Wi-Fi, in their house. And so they'll, it's like, oh, okay, I can just send this to you in the app, this picture of this item. So that's kind of cool. I'd say that's like the biggest change to the app that has been useful over the last 3 years.
It gives you the ability to adjust per customer, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's just any way that we can communicate, like every little tool helps, so try to meet people on a level, like, if you use WhatsApp as a way to text people, then hey, I got WhatsApp, let's talk, that kind of thing. But this is a way to connect and talk, via the text feature in the app. That's fine. Use that. So I'd say that's the feature that has, the most. I mean, there's different things in the app, like just tracking your statistics, a few changes here and there. I really like the feature of to see who your customers who order the most are, who have placed the most orders, I think are. That was something that I really appreciated. So a couple things like that.
Awesome. And then
But exciting changes. I don't know if those are exciting or not, but they're functional.
if they save you time and in doing the data yourself, then yeah,
They're
absolutely.
functional. They're definitely functional.
And then you've also attended quite a few of our office hours. Have you had any takeaways from those as far as how they've impacted your business?
Well, I mean, like I said to you at one point, like when I, kind of do log in to those, it's really, if I can take one thing, just one, then to me that's an hour well spent. So a lot of times I'm just trying to listen, especially at this point. But like I think the last few times I've joined out there, may not even turn my camera on. But it's just, it's like just listening and trying to see what, if there's something I can take from that time. So if you're asking, kind of one particular thing that I've taken, a lot over the years. But I mean, each session is different and it has different people involved. And look, the newcomers should all join, because those questions are repetitive. Like, this, like you could just like have a ventriloquist of yourself and do the same answers like to a third of the questions. No offense, because they're all, I mean, it was questions I had at the beginning too. But it's it's the marketing, it's the how do I get customers, it's the how does this work, what do I do, how do I unsort my list, how do I sort my lists, those kinds of, well, that's a new feature in the app too. You can change how your list is done. You can sort of uncategorize it and then move it like you used to, or you can keep it categorized. I like that.
Me too.
I like the categories, they're generally pretty good. And I used to I used to spend time moving everything around, because in my mind I'm mapping out the store, and I would take time, and now I don't really have to do that. I mean, there's a few things that are weird, but like in weird spots, but it's like, okay, I got this. So that to answer your last question, but I think just, joining the meeting and figuring it out, taking the time and learning what other people are doing. I mean, I learned a lot from Scott Fly, like that's an interesting, you can do that. Okay, well, let me just add some restaurants in just as add-ons, basically. But like, okay, like that's cool. And so I just think, it's definitely worth doing. Joining meetings. I don't know if that answered your question, Ashley.
Yes, you did. Yeah,
Sorry.
you're good.
And you have definitely brought a lot to office hours over I can't even remember how long we've been doing it, at least a year at this point, it seems like. And I think a lot of business owners, like when you join, especially when you're, you have stuff to say and to kind of share with the room, even though it's different than what maybe they're going through, you still bring a lot to the table and you have so much knowledge behind it. So we want to thank you for the times that you are able to drop in, whether you're just listening as a fly on the wall, or if you actually want to, hop into the conversation. Regardless, we always love when people just join, especially people that we talk to or haven't talked to in a little while.
Thanks. Well, no, and just with that, I mean, I do do have people reach out at various times and ask questions, like, just directly. And so it's like, I just feel like, trying to help people out. I mean, particularly, like, to be honest, like, most of the time if I join, I'm driving or doing something, so it's like, AirPods in. It's really not a whole lot of extra energy on my part. I'm not facilitating the meeting like you guys are. And it's just trying to, but if there's something that you can chime in on, you can help somebody out and help them get started, or help them, wherever they are, because, we are blessed and, feel like we should give back, if we can. So it's just a little way. And, when people do contact us and ask questions, we try to be helpful and answer them.
Yeah, it's a good way for you guys to kind of get to know people without being in the same area. And that way you can contact each other. It's another avenue for almost like a community type, right, thing. And we always love when you join and you have your phone on while you're driving and we get to see Alaska at its finest. It's always so fun to watch that. Don't ever feel like you always have to be on camera. You can turn it and we can see the landscape anytime. That's fine.
Yeah, I think that's always been confusing for people too, is like, just wow, weather is so different and people figure it out. And so I think that's something they take from it, right? Is even if they're not putting things on planes, this guy in Alaska has figured out how to keep food fresh. I can figure that out, right? It kind of, if you're able to kind of figure out these big things, that helps them. And I know one time you gave a really good example about, joining your small business association. And a lot of people had commented on that later about how just hearing it firsthand like that, we say it all the time, right? But hearing it, other examples of it was really helpful to them. So yeah, it's interesting. Each person, each meeting is different, but sometimes has the same questions. But from when you started, it helps to just have someone acknowledge your question and answer it. Especially if there's people from different biases answering it different ways, it can kind of help guide you. So yeah, we'll see, it'll continue to evolve and we'll see where it ends up in the future too.
No, and there's just to be, I mean, there are things that people need to hear, like how do you do this? And what steps did you do? What steps did somebody else do? What steps and so just getting, like, picking those, like, again, it's about finding your niche, picking those, and then figuring out, which ones are the, best to your particular situation. I think that's always good.
Yeah.
So one last question for you. If you could give a tip to new business owners or to people that are maybe thinking about starting their business, what would that be?
Well, try, I guess this is like kind of a fluid answer, but try it. Don't give up super easily. So plan, like, it's just not, it's not like, you do a security check and you clear the security check, and then you log into an app and you're working. You're not. Plan. Okay, what is it? What do I want the beginning of this look like? You don't know what it's going to be in 3 years or 5 years. But what do I want the beginning to look like? What is one goal? And then, but lay the foundation to be something bigger. Once it starts working and you realize, hey, I can do this, like get your business licenses situated so that you're legal. Get things done so that you have the framework and the platform to do different things and to grow, and you're not hurting yourself by saying no. And then that leads to just being open. So the one tip would just be open, like, hey, can you do this? Yeah, I can do this. There's nothing too big, too small. I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out. So just be open to opportunities, because they do present themselves eventually. And if you've got your framework and you've got, an openness, then you'll be able to kind of make it happen for yourself.
Awesome. I think that's great.
Perfect. And so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of your insights and getting to just dive in on your business a little bit more in depth. We've really enjoyed kind of picking your brain and chatting with you today.
Yeah. So, thank you for the opportunity to share and just talk and converse. It's always good to touch base and be in touch, and I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Of course.
So, go, everybody, if you watch this all the way through, go get them.
Perfect. We'll all keep rooting for you, and see what comes for you in the future too.
Awesome.
Been great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Take care of yourselves. Have a good one.
You too.